Okay, here's the actual truth. I was living in an apartment. The apartment community didn't like me. The apartment community was a very small one. You could hear everything going on inside people's apartments. And for some reason, people in the building didn't like the activities I was doing inside my apartment. And instead of being adults and telling me, they gang stalked against me and basically had the apartment community, which is property, Fowler Properties, kick me out, giving me a notice to vacate of 3 days, which I understand is a legal thing. But they did it without 3 business days. I have the letter. I can prove it. Now, they say I was threatening to a tenant, but I said what I said inside my apartment. They have no context of who I said it to because I was by myself, speaking to myself. And they say I was threatening, and I'm like, really? If I was threatening, then where's the police report? Because I've read the lease. And the lease of the apartment I was in on 4912 Gaston states that if there's a threat against another tenant, that's immediate grounds for an eviction, and they didn't evict me. They gave me a notice to vacate, which meant, from what I found out, I had 30 days. I found this out after I was told to vacate. I had 30 days to fight the notice to vacate and then fight an eviction notice. And I'm thinking, okay, well, here's the thing. If I was threatening, then why didn't you call the police and file a police report? And you didn't. You didn't do any of that. You see? There's no police report that Evan was threatening, and anything I say inside my apartment is private. Doesn't matter who I'm saying it to. It's private. So I get kicked out, basically. Then I'm living with my sister. I'm stressing out. My routine is totally upset because I have what is called complex PTSD. Complex PTSD was brought on by that one instance of getting kicked out of my apartment. And that's what they call chronic PTSD, because something occurred to bring up all and flesh up all the aspects and symptoms of complex PTSD, which is a nervous system disorder. So my sister didn't want to deal with that. And I freaked out and I left her house. I freaked out and left my sister's house. Got sent to Baylor Hospital. They thought I was kooky crazy. I explained to them what my condition is. They didn't want to hear it. They just released me a couple hours later and sent me home. Which I didn't go home because they didn't have go home to go to. They just let me leave the hospital. 2 people followed me from the hospital. I don't know why. I don't know why that happened. And they tried to jump me. So I just dropped my crap and left and ran for my life because they were trying to jump me. So they somebody found my property that I had on me when I was taken to Baylor, which was my phone and my cell phone. And a blanket, I think, is what I had. And that was it. I finally end up living on the streets for about 4 days after that. Now, my sister and my brother-in-law will tell you I was in a hospital the whole time, and I was not. And the hospital may have lied because they didn't give me any discharge papers that I know of. So Baylor may have lied to them and said I was still sitting in the hospital, which means that's a lawsuit against Baylor for lying and saying I'm admitted in the hospital when I'm not sitting in the hospital bed. The address on my license in my wallet, which was left at my sister's, ended up being returned to me weeks later when I went back to Baylor to pick it up. And how that happened, I wouldn't know. Because I walked around homeless from downtown Dallas for 4 days with no ID, no bank cards to my name, no cell phone, no computer, no social security card, nothing. I survived. It was a miracle. actually. I call my sister. She comes and picks me up and it's like, where the hell have you been? And Haley wasn't even asking where the hell I was been, where I was. She just was like, okay, I'll come pick you up. So I come and pick her up. Or she comes and picks me up. Doesn't ask what the hell happened. She's just like, where's all your stuff? I'm like, I don't know. This is what happened. Well, you could stay here one night. So they let me take a bath, wash my clothes, what I had on. They let me gather a couple of things. And then they send my sister and her brother, or her husband, my brother-in-law, send me to a ratty-ass motel at the corner of Fitzhugh and 75. That's about a $80 a night hotel. They give me $100 in cash. Still have no ID. I still have no bank cards. I still have no social security cards. I still have no wallet, anything, no cell phone, no computer, nothing. Not a thing. They leave me there in a truck that's registered to my deceased father with not even a quarter tank of gas. And they're like, okay, you're on your own. You got to get all your shit back. Good luck. And they leave me there. Now, how the heck am I supposed to get into anything? You need your phone for everything. I can't even open an email on a computer if I had one to tell my work what the hell's going on or to fill out the FMLA paperwork that my work gave me. So I'm stuck like Chuck. I have no ability to do anything at this point. Once again, having complex PTSD and it being a nervous system disorder, I'm in a high state of anxiety. And I found that that is bad because that sends you into a fight or a flight or a freeze mode. And mine happen all at the same time for me. My nervous system is the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. They're supposed to run in tandem with each other, but when you're in a high state of anxiety or in a flight mode or a fight mode or a freeze mode, they shoot on at the same time. And that's what you saw me doing the other day when I was live, is I was having a somatic seizure. Here's the other weird thing. I found out that I have Takotsubo, I think it's Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. It's called broken heart syndrome. It happens when you have the acute experience of having the loss of an intimate partner. And that's what I experienced when my late woman, B, that's what I like to call her, her name was Brandina. She died at 42. Wasn't expecting that. So I had a little bit of a stressor going on, and now I have this Japanese octopus trap-shaped ventricle in my heart, and that's bad. It's bad to have that. So there I am laying in the hotel room trying to figure out what the hell to do because no one wants to seem to help me. So I had my sister at some point reach out to someone in the chain of command at my work at Jack Henry. And they were like, don't worry, we'll get you taken care of. And they kind of did in a way. But here's the weird thing. They decided to try to put me on FMLA, and I appreciate that because I needed the time off. I did. I was stressed out. I never really got to grieve the loss of my woman or my dad who passed 2 years earlier. There was never really it was just this weird timetable. So I'm sitting in a hotel room, actually a motel room. I'm in a hotel now, but I'm sitting in it at the time. I was sitting in a hotel room, a motel room. And I caused a lot of trouble apparently at my work because I called a woman named Sharon. And she was like, I explained the whole thing. She was like, okay, don't worry, we're going to get you all started on what you need. And I was like, okay, well, here's the thing. I can't really do much because I don't have a computer. And if I had a computer, in order to get into my emails, I need two-step verification, which is on my cell phone, and I don't have that. At the time, I didn't have it. And I tried to explain, and now Jack Henry got all pissed off because I jumped the chain of command. Because here's the weird thing. Even though it's a civilian workplace and a civilian company, they treat you like you're in the military. And how do I know that? Because I was in the Marine Corps as a woman. See, that's the thing. People forget I'm a transgendered man. And they're like, you're not a service member. I'm like, yeah, look it up. Elena Gabriela Martinez. Fought for an honorable discharge. Got it. The reason I got out on an honorable discharge is because the Marine Corps violated their don't ask, don't tell policy on the day it was enacted. I was on leave, and Top Carhart, First Sergeant Carhart, who was the gentleman that was the first sergeant of our office at the time, had a closed door office meeting and basically pressured the Marines there. That basically was like, he was like, hey, if you're a good Marine, then you're going to do this. And if you want a career in the Marine Corps, you're going to do this. And I didn't want to deal with all that brat shit, so I just said I want an honorable, and I found 2 civilian lawyers who took care of the problem for me, because here's the weird thing. They went public with the story like I'm doing right now. And the next thing you know, the Marine Corps was like, you know what? Get this person the fuck out of here. Because we fucked up. And we're not going to court-martial this person. And I believe they study it in school, in the laws books. Because it never went to a court-martial, which is a little unweird. That's a little weird to have in a case, especially when it's the military involved. So that happened. Back way in the day, 91 through 94 is when I was there. I was a Lance Corporal, good conduct medal, National Service Defense Medal, because I went in during Desert Shield, Desert Storm. You can look it up. Probably have to dig a little bit, but you'll find it. Religion, no preference. It's all there. Let's just get back to the other story. So I'm sitting in the hotel room. I call Jack Henry. I tell him, hey, here's what's happening. This is why I wasn't able to fill out your FMLA. They go, okay, that's fine. They give me a coordinator of some type. I finally am bouncing from hotel to hotel to hotel to hotel. And before that, I was living out of my dad's truck for about a week or so. I checked myself in to Parkland because I was having stressors and had no place to live. This was during when I was living on the street. You can check with Parkland. I admitted myself. Then I checked myself out because I was like, I don't think this is where I need to be. But then I went back and they were like, okay, go to the psych ward. So they sent me to the psych ward to try to put me in general population. And I was like, well, I don't need to be in general population. What's going on with me is this. I have complex PTSD, and here's how it operates. And when a patient with it gets into a fight, flight, or freeze mode due to continual prodding, poking, and being kept in a state of high anxiety, you have seizures and you have a lack of sleep. And what a person like myself needed was 3 months of relaxation, meaning being out in nature, not being disturbed, not being kept in a state of anxiety because you don't know where you're going to sleep the next night or where your income is coming from. And I was being kept in that, living in a truck. So I said, screw it. I'm going to call this family that I've asked for help before, and I called them. And they helped me. I guess they talked to my sister or something, because the next thing I know is they're like, we're going to help you get your credit card, your phone, all this stuff back. And I'm like, really? How's that? All I had on me was my cell phone. The next thing we know, we go back to Baylor, the original hospital I went to, asked to speak to a Lucy, which is funny because my sister and I always called each other Lucy and Linus from the Peanuts, which I thought that was kind of weird. We go and they say, there's no Lucy here. Well, we were told that there was a Lucy here holding all the things of Evans. And guess what? The next thing I know, I have my wallet and my cell phone. And that's funny because when I left my sister's house the very first time, I didn't take my wallet with me. And the address on the driver's license that I have is 8524 Rolling Rock, which means if somebody picked up the items I dropped initially when I was leaving Baylor and got jacked and followed, and it had my wallet in it some amazing way, that would have been dropped off at 8524 Rolling Walk. And a certain gentleman named Adam lives there. And he's friends with a lot of hackers and computer people. And I noticed that my original cell phone that I had when I got it back with this family that took me there, my phone had been fucked with and hacked. And all this weird stuff started going on with my cell phone. Well, weird stuff happened with the family. Came to pick me up. So I left again because I was being put in a high state of anxiety and started suffering seizures again. And I took off again because that's what happens when you have PTSD. You freak out. Your nervous system is going haywire and you're freaking out. So I left. And that's when I started living out of hotels. Then I called two people. Called a lot of people that I thought were friends, and none of them wanted to help me, really. So then I called two people that live in Corinth, Texas. And I thought I was welcome there, but I found out I really wasn't, because in my state of anxiety, you have the ability to process certain things. You're just like, I just need help, please. I just need a place to stay and sleep and all this stuff, and trying to get my life back together because I do have a job and I would like to be able to work so I can get a paycheck and find an apartment, because that's literally what I was trying to do. But then my sister kicked me out and they were like, what the hell's going on there? We don't want you here unless you want to be here. Who the hell says that? People that don't want you there, apparently. And so they would do things to play mind games and bully me, because they really didn't want me there. They didn't know what to do with me. They were like, finally, they're like, are you going to find an apartment? I am. I just need time to calm down to do that and get some sleep. But I could never get any sleep, because they would just play mental mind games, which I'm sure people have been in those positions before, where people say and do one thing and then act and do the other, the total opposite, and they're like confused, and you're left in another high state of anxiety. And as a person with a nervous system diagnosis disorder, that's so weird. And the weird thing is, the whole time I was trying to be resting on FMLA and not doing anything, I was stuck calling the coordinator at Jack Henry and saying, hey, could you please do your job? You're supposed to be filling out this paperwork for me. If you just would call and ask me, then you could coordinate with Hartford, and their coordinator could coordinate with my psychologist, Dr. Powell, who gave me a diagnosis and gave you all a diagnosis letter multiple times. But you all, Jack Henry, decided you wanted to not approve whatever I needed other than short-term disability. You approved the FMLA, which I think was approved by Hartford. I don't really know. But for 3 months, I spent 3 months, instead of relaxing, I spent 3 months trying to navigate a system I didn't know how to navigate. And I shouldn't have been doing that. What should have been happening was Jack Henry's coordinator, named Joanne Tranquillo, or she says Tranquillo, should have been coordinating with the Hartford, whoever that coordinator was. And those two institutions should have been calling the third person for questions, which would have been either myself or the other party, which is Dr. Marilyn Powell. She was my psychologist at the point in time. And she was trying to coordinate with them as well, and it was pissing off Dr. Powell as well as myself. We shouldn't have had been doing any of that. It should have been 1 or 2 phone calls at the most, and then the coordinating between Jack Henry and Hartford should have been going on so that this guy could get rest, and that's never happened. So then the people I'm living with, because they have issues with their mother-in-law and their daughter and needing a place for those two individuals, will stay, instead of telling me, hey, here's what's going on. They did the same thing at the apartments. They just bullied and harassed me to the point where I had to call the police, which I have it documented on video. I had to call the police. And then that's when the Corinth police and the fire department, or whoever showed up, the paramedic, assaulted me. And I have video of that. I have pictures, actually. Pictures of them holding me down on my legs and my arms and forcing a needle into my vein when they thought I was ODing. And I told them, nope, I have complex PTSD. Officer Sasser from the Corinth Police Department was there and told these gentlemen that I was a person with PTSD and that I was just having a seizure, and to let me do my thing because I was tapping. But then she let them come in and hold me down and administer this, which is really weird. I told her I had a heart condition. I have pictures of all this. They put the EKG monitors around my heart. Then they administered me with insulin and a 0.09% mix of sodium chloride, which I looked up, which is supposed to help with seizures. But when you have a heart condition and a nervous system disorder, what that does is throw the person back into seizures. And then apparently I passed out. This was around 9 or something in the morning, I guess. I don't know. I have this weird timetable. Everything's been videotaped, and I have pictures. And when I started seizing, before I passed out, I told him to get the F off of me because I didn't need that crap. And the needle broke off in my arm, and I have pictures of that too. And they basically assaulted me. I think they may have raped me, but I'm not really sure because I passed out and then woke up in a hospital with a freaking 5 hour time gap. Dismissed myself because I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. But here's the weird thing, it was at Texas Presbyterian in Denton, and they admitted me without my consent. And that's a lawsuit, Texas Presbyterian, waiting to happen. Because I'm going to find a lawyer because this kid is a survivor. And I'm going to find the right lawyer that's going to represent me. I was hoping it would be through the consulting firm of a famous woman who fought for a county or a city and won a $333 million lawsuit. And the weird thing is I wish somehow she would get in touch with me because I did reach out to her website and give some information. I'm going to be weird. My number is 214-223-4362. Y'all can call me and I'll verify it. Aaron Brockovich George. I'm sorry to call you out, but this child of God needs somebody to represent him because I have a harassment suit against a city, against a hospital circuit, against a job for HIPAA violations, bullying, harassment, discrimination, and possibly 2 individuals or a couple others for cyber stalking. And I believe that has been proven. It may not have been a conviction in a court of law, but it was proven. And I have a list, and I can write it down 1,000,000 times off of the top of my head that ties back to a certain individual I lived with for 6 years. Now I'm fighting for my life because my company doesn't want to believe that I have a diagnosis, even though they have a diagnosis letter in their records at HR. And I have a boss and another boss named Ashley and Chris who don't seem to understand or want to understand the diagnosis of someone like myself. Trying to think of what else to do. Let me pause this. Also, during this time, I got smart and filed my back taxes. So it's going to come out that I believe the man I was living with and maybe his wife filed some taxes on my behalf unbeknownst to me and may have cashed some IRS checks with some forged signatures. And that would have been the people that I was living with at 8524 Rolling Rock. Maybe. I don't know. It's just weird. It's just weird. All these things keep tying back to that address. Every single person that I reached out to for help knows the person that I lived with at that address. And it's so weird. And here's the other weird thing. My company, Jack Henry, they don't want to pay me anymore. They stopped paying me. And here's why. They're going to try to get me fired on a performance issue. And they think as long as they do that, they're not opening themselves up to a lawsuit. But they are. Because they've had multiple HIPAA violations about the fact that I'm a trans person. And even probably about the fact that I have PTSD on a type of PTSD. And that's a HIPAA violation, Jack Henry. Big time. Big time, big time. And you're going to say, well, he told me. That's true. I did tell 4 individuals over the course of the 17 years that I worked there. So if anybody else in the company knows, that was the HIPAA violation. And pretty much everybody in the company knows probably at this point. Not from me, but from people blabbing. And even if you do it through a Teams chat, HIPAA violation. And guess what? Teams chats are run by Microsoft and Microsoft Outlook, and even Microsoft keeps records of those. The company keeps records of them, but Microsoft also keeps records of them. And I have photograph evidence that I probably was assaulted by the Corinth Police Department. Now I'm stuck without a paycheck because Jack Henry said, we don't want to pay you because you're refusing to work. And it's like, I'm not refusing to work. I had to call the police on the 2 individuals I was staying with. And they did that as a bluff move because they didn't think I was really going to call it. They were like, well, we'll call the police. I said, no, let me do it for you. And here's the weird thing about it is I was staying with them. I was there for over a month. I was there for about 2 or 3 months. And here's the interesting thing about Texas laws. When you're staying in a room for over 30 days, it's called you're now a resident. And how do I know this? Because they do the same thing in a hotel that has suites. If you stay in a hotel room longer than 30 days, you're a resident of the hotel and you get a discounted rate. And so if you're in a room of an individual's home and you're not paying rent, you don't own that home, once you've been in a certain room staying and sleeping there for 30 days, you're considered a resident of that house, meaning you have privacy laws. And that means that whoever lives in that house or owns that house is not allowed to come in your room at any time for any reason without your consent, express permission. And I expressed consently that they were not allowed in that room, yet they came up into that room and started threatening me. And I told them, I was like, anytime, if you come in this room, I'm going to consider that a threat, and then it's going to be a defensive thing from my perspective, because I'm going to take it as an attack against me. Even if I'm yelling and screaming and slamming a door, you don't get to say shit about it. Other than please be quiet. And see, that's what happened. I slammed the door, and the gentleman of that house named Jeff made his way up the stairs with a cane and put it in my face, so I took that as a threat. And that's when he was like, well, I'm going to call the police and say you assaulted me. And I'm like, well, I'm going to call the police for you and say I was defending myself and that you're not allowed to come in here. And the police refused to look up the laws. And then that's when they were like, you need to get the F out. And then all that stuff started with them pinning me down, trying to administer this drug to me. And I have pictures of it. They used almost the entire fucking vial, if I'm not mistaken. Then I called a law firm called Jackson Spencer Law, which I didn't realize was just a vetting company. They're not really a law firm. They're an LLC firm. And what they do is they take in applications for discrimination against your employer, and then they send it out to lawyers to see if there's a case. And they held on to my stuff for over 2 weeks. And they never even sent it. And I said, why are you doing that? Is it because I'm a trans person? Because if you're not gonna represent me based on that, that's also a discrimination case against you, and I'll sue you for that. And then they went and said, that's a conflict of interest. We can't represent you. And I'm like, really? I didn't know I had representation in the first place. You never expressed that to me. And I have that in an email. See, I have all this proof, but nobody wants to believe that I have the proof in the pudding. And really, the proof in the pudding is all the evidence I have and me. So now, Jack Henry says, hey, you're not going to work right now. And we don't give a poop. Because here's what my boss Ashley did. How comfortable are you with stuff? Not too comfortable. I've been away for 3 months, actually. I don't really remember everything. And I don't know that I'd be comfortable doing all these duties at the same, all these responsibilities and duties and tasks for the day. Okay, Evan, well, you need to do that today, starting today. And you'll do that the rest of the week. And then, because they're Jack Henry, they went behind and monitored me on the computer. And the weird thing is we had to use our personal phones to download applications so we could log into these applications that we're using at work, which if you're in IT, we all know that's a backdoor into your personal cell phone. And I believe Jack Henry was monitoring all this stuff I was doing on my personal cell phone while I was working from home. And here's the other thing. They took themselves as a work from home remote job, and that they are friendly to veterans and have a DEI in place still. Well, that sounds like a bunch of crap. Because if they're veteran friendly, then why are they causing me to have somatic seizures? And here's the great thing. I have photographic proof in a Teams chat. There's no proprietary information in the photographs I took, by the way, that shows, hey, when I'm having a seizure, I'm going to send you this funky emoji face. And I did it like 3 times in my immediate supervision, which was Ashley and Chris after that, because that's Ashley's boss. Ashley ignored it. They ignored that I was having seizures. And that's when I called HR and was like, here's the deal. And what did HR do? Nothing. But tell me, well, you need an accreditation from the ADA. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. I've already been put on FMLA once and then got short-term disability. But my accreditation from ADA was initially repealed and said denied by Jack Henry. How do you get a short-term disability payout if your disability accreditation was null and void? That's what I don't understand. That's where it gets confusing. So what I really feel is that Jack Henry probably owes me back pay from whatever date I started my FMLA back in March something at 50% the rate, because I only got paid 15% of my paycheck apparently. Unless they did pay me the 75% full on of short term. But how do you get short term disability when your American disability accommodation was denied? That's what I don't understand. But we'll figure it out. Because this person, Evan, Gabriel Martinez, always does. Oh, and here's the other weird thing. My father deceased in 2018, and we sold his house. And I found out there's property under the Martinez name. Now it's under my cousin's name, but that's still mi familia. And the gentleman who was our realtor, Adam, that lives at 8524 Rolling Rock, he was our realtor, and I don't think he did his due diligence in finding all the properties under my dad's name. And he probably found it, but didn't understand what the heck was going on and didn't follow through with everything. And I'm wondering if that makes the sale of any properties he's done for the transactions between myself and my dad selling the house makes it null and void. And if that's the case, how does that work? Because there's a family living in the place of Palace Way house that my dad owned at 10811 Palace Way. And I'm just wondering, well, how does that work? Because if this realtor guy didn't do his due diligence in finding all of the properties under the Martinez name that were my dad's, and even if they were transferred to his half-daughter, that's still in the family hands of Frank A. Martinez, you see. And now I believe it's in the hands of Stephanie Martinez, who is my cousin. That's still familia to Frank A. Martinez. See, there's a lot of, it's like we're this giant tree in the phone book, the Martinez families. We pretty much dominate besides all the other Hispanic and Latin and names. But that's the weird thing. I don't think he did it, and I think he got lazy. And I'm thinking, well, doesn't that make any sales that he made of our father's house null and void? Or any other sales he made? Or maybe the realty company he worked for at the time he sold it? And here's the weird thing. We used a Capital Title, and it's somebody I know, two people I know, work for Capital Title. And that was the family that was one of the families that was supposed to help me. And it all ties back to this man that lived at 8524 Rolling Rock. It just keeps tying back to this man that I lived with for 6 years. And I believe he hacked my phone while I was living there, because you only have to get on the Wi-Fi once for that to happen. And I was on the Wi-Fi all the time using my cell phone. And I think he hacked my personal computer because I was on the Wi-Fi to his house. And if he didn't hack it, he had friends hack it, because he's got a guy that he knows named Ian, who I believe is a cybersecurity expert. Plus, the weird thing is there's two other individuals I know that know this gentleman at 8524 Rolling Rock. And I believe one of them is a woman, and she worked for McAfee, which is ironically the security company that runs T-Mobile's cell fucking network. And I've had issues with my cell phone ever since I got it back from the hospital. I even got a new cell phone. And that's the funky thing, is I don't have an income anymore. I'm living off about $1,000 in the wings of a prayer that somebody will reach out to this person and go, guess what, Evan, you have a case and I'm going to take care of you. We're going to take care of you because you have a case. And you're funny. And we could use some comedy gold bars. Plus, you have this ancestral lineage tied thing to this Timothy Matlack dude. That's interesting enough just for history buffs alone. And I was going to house sit for this young woman who's traveling a lot. And she needs somebody there to take packages and keep the pool clean and make sure the house doesn't get dusty while she's off gallivanting around filming crap. Which I was like, cool, I need to be by a pool. I would love to be by a pool. And a dog. I could use a service animal, but I don't even know how the hell that's going to happen. Nobody that I reached out to wants to help this person for some reason. They think I'm going to wave a gun and kill people, and that's not the concept of complex PTSD, nor it is the actual reality of complex PTSD. The actual reality is your nervous system gets out of whack and you suffer seizures and then you pass out, and you may or may not wake up. And I'd love to speak upon it because I want to start something that helps other people see, hey, I live with this diagnosis and this disorder. However, I'm fully functional because I'm aware and I take care of myself by getting regulated sleep, rest, relaxation. I take care of myself with proper nutrition and I meditate. And I'm not being poked and prodded every 5 seconds or every 5 minutes by loud sounds and obnoxious people around me that don't seem to understand I need quiet. Because when you're in a high state of anxiety, it throws you into like freak out mode. And then you do get all weirded out. And here's the weird, interesting thing that I looked up. When you have a form of PTSD and you decide you want to try to figure out what your triggers are that causes you to have your little freakouts or whatever, that's what I call them. Here's some things you can look up. This is really fascinating, actually. It's really, really fascinating for me, specifically. Here's 2 things you might find interesting. 1, pardon me. As a trans person, I've been on testosterone for 17 years now, and I'm basically going through a puberty moment of growing up as a man and becoming a man, and most people will be like, you're not a man, you don't have a penis. Well, that's your perspective, and you hold that bucket for me. I'm not going to hold your perspective of me for you. I will not do that. But look up brain plasticity, trans people, or transgendered men, and testosterone, and you'll find the weirdest thing. My prefrontal cortex right now is forming new literal neurological pathways of reasoning and decision making. It's true. They finally decided to study us trans people. They finally really decided to get off their ass. Somebody in the medical community decided to do us a big favor and say, here, I want to research this group of individuals because they're very interesting and they have things happening they can't explain it, and I want to try to explain that. And here's the weird thing. Your medulla oblongata, all the nerves, all the white nervy stuff that hangs down off there and attaches to your spinal cord, which is basically your nervous system, that gets thickened up. And you form new neuronic pathways throughout your brain. So basically, I'm going through puberty right now. I'm in a 53-year-old frame, which I call a body. But I'm having like the weird things of a 17-year-old going on, which is weird and interesting. And here's the other thing. Look up PTSD, energy healing, and shamanism, or shaman, rather. Either or will probably work. And you'll find that a lot of patients that have PTSD, some of them are religious, maybe they're not religious, but those that are, and those that usually want to try to heal or be functional with having a type of PTSD diagnosis, they will turn to spirituality and turn to energy work, which means you're working with your chakras, your chakra system. Everybody has them, believe it or not. It's true. Everybody has what they call nodes or nodi. I believe it's plural. I could be incorrect. Please don't get mad if I stuck my foot in my mouth. But yeah, and once that happens and you do some healing and some somatic energy work, and for me, healing was going to therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and I was getting that from a psychologist, Dr. Marilyn Powell, who's a freaking badass. And I went to grief therapy with Leslie West, who was also a badass and also did cognitive behavioral therapy, also with EMDT therapy, which is a type of EFT tapping and rapid eye movement, which helps you flush up the energy and helps you talk through your symptoms and why you're feeling that way. She helped me as well as Dr. Marsha Martin, the heart healer, who has a heart healing foundation, and she does work with her beliefs. She's a channel, and she's opened up through her healing the ability to speak to angels, and you can believe it or not, but she does. She's a channel. It's kind of like being a psychic a little bit. But she helped me heal my heart chakra and remove and flush out and talk about and look at and heal my childhood traumas, as well as help me move through the grief with the assistance of Dr. Powell and Mrs. West. And because of that, I decided to look into shaman work because I was like, what is a shaman? I don't even really know. And I looked it up and I started working with this shaman. Well, she claims she's a shaman. Her business is rare bird medicine. And I thought maybe through these ladies that I'd get some help, and I did. But now I don't know what the hell's going on. Because I opened myself up through all the healing, and a lot of men and women that have PTSD, when they do their healing and do their energy work, they don't realize it, but they open up their chakra channels, and then they themselves become a channel. And I have opened up mine, and so now I'm channeling. I asked for it. I did ask to speak to my passed away loved ones, because I was like, hey, I miss conversating with you all, especially my father and my deceased woman. We were always talking with each other. I would go to my dad's and talk. I would go on the phone with my woman and talk. We were talking all the time. All the time. Even when we were doing it, we were talking to each other. And not in the whole, oh shit, it feels good way, but like actually with our eyes, we were just communicating all the time. It was really interesting and weird and kind of cool. But Brandina and I were always talking to each other. Always. Always, always, always conversating. And I still love her. That's the weird thing. I don't know how to let go of that love because she didn't break up with me. I've said it in videos previously. She croaked. And I wanted to be able to conversate with her. So somehow, some way, my third eye, I started working on that and opening that up. Started opening up my intuition more. Started listening to meditative things. Started meditating more. Started to do all this energy work. And guess what? I'm an empath and a really strong one. I have Claire Gustafson. I can smell food that hasn't been given to me yet, that's being cooked somewhere else or cooked in the feet. It's so interesting and fun and weird. Like, I could go into it for hours. I also have the ability to feel energy. I can tell when people are seething and irritating and projecting their energy towards me, and I can feel when they're being nice and friendly. And it freaks people out because now it's like I'm Edward Casey in a weird way. I think he was like a psychic medium, and he was a mind reader in a sense because he could hear and feel the thoughts of people that were talking about him. It's like a bullshit detector. It's weird to channel individuals around you and their thoughts. And it sounds like I'm crazy, but I'm not. If I'm crazy, then how come I'm able to sit here and have a lucid conversation with the camera and record and do work and DJ and post mixes and make videos and think of comedy gold bars? It's weird. Here's the interesting thing. When my father passed away, we sold his house. Let me get back to that. There's not an inheritance tax of any kind in the state of Texas. There hasn't been one since 2015. And I keep begging my sister, please contact me so we can release the funds from the sale of his home to the proper people, i.e., myself, my half sister Veronica, who I love very much, who's waiting for money, as well as Maria Carmen McCormick, who ironically is trying to pass off her son as me and me as her son Chuck McCormick. And I don't know why that's occurring, but she's trying to do that. And my sister Melissa, who deserves some money as well. But for some reason, they won't do that because my older sister Melissa, who I'm the co-executor with, keeps insisting there's an inheritance tax and we need to pay off his debts. Well, that's fine. Save about $5,000 and give the rest of the money out to the people that deserve it. Because they're waiting. No, Nina, I'm not going to go to the hospital. I don't need to go to a hospital. What I need is rest and sleep and the ability to do a job so I can get paid. I'm not crazy. I'm just really stressed out. There's a difference. There's a difference. And I'm going to keep calling all of you people out. And I think it's really weird that all of you are now all of a sudden concerned. And the only reason you're concerned is I called you out on your bullshit. That's how I know I have a case.